to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and that is now back-to-back defeats on the road for your Philadelphia Union. And maybe, just maybe, an even more disappointing game than the game last weekend in Atlanta. And what makes it even worse is those 10:35-ish kickoff times where we're all staying up until 1 o'clock here on the East Coast. I mean, I guess it's a good thing that the game wasn't on a Wednesday like some of them have been in the past, but still, nonetheless, for all of us to stay up that late and see the Union perform as poorly as they did, it's disappointing, and we'll get into that game here in a second. A lot of thoughts from myself. I know a lot of thoughts from a ton of you guys on social media. People were not happy. People are acting like they were 2 months ago, acting like the Union aren't going to make the playoffs. And that's definitely not going to happen, right? Will the Union finish top 2? Will they win the East again this year? Probably not. Probably not. And we'll get into what it will take for the Union to do just that. And last night, make no mistake, last night was a huge result for the Union to pick up points on every single team that was ahead of them in the Eastern Conference last night. Because if you guys weren't watching MLS 360, or if you guys weren't watching any of the other games because you didn't want to watch MLS 360, which I don't blame you, you had Charlotte and Cincinnati tying 2-2. Charlotte were winning that game 2-0, and credit to Cincinnati, they came back and tied that game up 2-2. You had Columbus and New York City draw 1-1. And you had Chicago Fire. The Chicago Fire beat Nashville 1-0. And then you had New York Red Bulls. They beat New England Revolution 2-1. And so all the teams in front of the Union that the Union needed to drop points, they all do the Union a favor. And the Union can't take advantage of that. A disappointing evening. And Jim Curtin said in his post-game press conference that was the final thing he told his players before they went out and played against LA Galaxy, where there's a big night for us to make up ground, to pick up points, because all the teams that we're chasing in the standings, they've done us a favor and dropped points. And now we got to go out there and do our job and get points. And the Union could not do that. And so we'll get into all that here in a bit. And because I feel like we're going to spend a while talking about this game, we're not going to go ahead and do a goal breakdown this episode. As always, it'll be on YouTube, youtube.com/freekickpod. As always, thank you for the people that are leaving feedback on those videos, for subscribing to the page. Greatly appreciate it from you guys. We'll go ahead and talk about the 3 stars blunder of the week, and we have a whole bunch of news, and I don't want to delay time further with letting you guys know what we have in store for this episode. So without further ado, let's get straight into the news. All right, so right off the back, Jakob Glesnes, he is joining Jose Martinez at the 2023 MLS All-Star Game this July at Aldi Field in D.C. Jakob Glesnes was added along with Carlos Gil of New England Revolution, just because some of the players on the roster are going to be missing because of the Gold Cup. And so Wayne Rooney decided to call up Jakob Glesnes as one of his center back replacements, and Carlos Gil was also called up. And this is going to be the 3rd consecutive year that the Union have had 2 or more players represented at the All-Star Game. In 2021, you had Blake and Kai Wagner. Last season, you had Andre, Kai, and Jakob. And now this year, like I said, Jakob Glesnes is joining Jose Martinez. And this is back-to-back seasons with Jakob Glesnes in the All-Star Game. And you got to admit, out of all the defenders, Kai definitely got snubbed, so I can't say out of all the defenders. Out of all the center backs, I'll say Jakob's been the most consistent one. Kai Wagner definitely got snubbed, not getting on this list. You guys have heard me talking about what he's done defensively this season, the last couple episodes, pointing out some key stats. 100% snubbed, not making the All-Star roster this year. But Jakob Glesnes, Wayne Rooney gets another one correct by including Jakob Glesnes as one of his center backs, joining the MLS team that's going to take on Arsenal in July, which we all know we're in July. So that game's coming up here really, really quickly. Not going down there. Maybe some of you guys are. And if you guys are, hopefully you have a good time. Hopefully we see a good performance from Jakob and Jose Martinez. Kind of sucks that the mini games that they play, I think that's on a Tuesday if I'm not mistaken, Jakob Glesnes and Jose Martinez aren't going to be participating in that. Wouldn't you guys love to see either one of those guys in the shooting challenge? I feel like they would do so well, but nah. They're not going to be in any of the games, but they will be on the roster. They will be participating, hopefully, in this game. Hopefully they both get the start, but regardless, 2 Union players on the roster this year, 3rd consecutive season. And now the last bit of news I want to talk about is a whole bunch of transfers. I don't want to give my thoughts on, I think this team did good. Here's the stats for X player. Here's stats for X players. I'm just going to tell you guys all the moves that you might have missed last week that were announced by Tom Bogert. Guys on top of it all. If you guys don't follow him on social media, be sure to follow Tom. And, I'm not just saying that because I've had him on this podcast in January. Great, great, great guest to have on. Maybe we can revisit that at another point. But it's because he's a follow that you guys need to be following. And so, Minnesota United, they have signed Ismail Tajori Sharati through the end of the 2023 season with club options for the 2024 and 2025 season. The former New York City winger is back after playing in Cyprus for a season. This time, he's joining Minnesota United. CF Montreal have acquired forward Mahala Apoko from LAFC for $1.75 million in GAM. You have Andrew Gutman joining the Colorado Rapids. Atlanta received $400,000 in GAM and a 2023 international roster spot. Atlanta could receive another $150,000 in GAM in add-ons if Andrew performs well with the Rapids. And since we're talking about the Rapids, let's keep up with some more news coming out of Colorado. They have signed Brazilian center forward Rafael Navarro from Palmeiras in Brazil. Colorado will pay a $500,000 loan fee and hold a $4.5 million purchase option at the end of the 12-month loan for Navarro. New England Revolution have signed Argentine attacker Tomas Chancalay on loan from Racing Club in Argentina. The loan is through the 2023 season with a purchase clause. If the purchase clause is triggered, Chancalay would be a DP in 2024. Atlanta United, we probably should have mentioned them when we talked about Andrew, but regardless, we're going back to Atlanta. They have loaned Franco Ibarro to Toronto for the rest of the 2023 season because Atlanta have 4 players in their U22 initiative spot. So they have to loan one of those guys out, and they decided to loan out Franco Ibarro to Toronto. And then the last bit of news I want to talk about is Brandan Craig, Philadelphia Union's own, has been loaned to Austin FC for the remainder of the 2023 MLS season. In return, the Union received a 3rd round 2024 Super Draft pick. Probably not going to use that, right? And up to $125,000 in 2024 GAM. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say. Will the Union replace Brandan Craig since they're down a center back?
In that instance, we're always looking to improve, and you guys have heard me speak to how important that position is. It really, really is valuable. Just look at the MLS table right now, and every team towards the top 10 has really good center backs. And I think that is a recipe for success in this league. So you can never have enough good ones. This was an opportunity to now have, obviously, when we get all 3 back, we have Brandan, developing and improving and getting minutes, hopefully with Austin, so that when he comes back to us, he's that much further along in his growth and development. So I think it's a plan that is creative. It's a plan that suits both teams in this instance, and certainly, that three in the back is something that we can go to. Guys like Kai and Bizo, Nathan can fill in an emergency as well. Matt Real too. So we should be okay.
And so Jim Curtin said, it's an area we're always looking at improving. And then he said later on, this came from the press conference on Thursday of last week. And he said later on in that press conference that, they are targeting other players too. And if the deal makes sense for the players and the club, then the union are going to sign more players. But yeah, I thought it was interesting there that the union are potentially looking at bringing in another center back, even though they just loaned out Brandan Craig. And a lot of people were upset with this move, and I'm not quite sure why. Because Brandan Craig was never going to get minutes with Union this season. We saw it, and I talked about it last episode. I think it's pretty telling when Nate Harriel, Matt Real, Kai Wagner are all getting starts as a center back over Brandan Craig. And now he goes to a place in Austin where they prefer to possess the ball, play out of the back, and that's Brandan Craig's strong suit. Is playing those long balls, playing those through balls, splitting the lines. He's great at that. And if he can get playing time in Austin, if he can work on the defending side of things, then maybe, just maybe, he comes back to the Union next season with an opportunity to fight for that third center back spot. I don't think so, but you never know. He's not going to be going to Austin and starting right away. That's for sure. At best, he'll be choice number 3. And the one thing that confuses me is why so many people hype up Brandan Craig. I think he's a player that's just okay. He's 19 years old, super young. And people were acting like this was the worst thing in the world, loaning a 19-year-old that just doesn't play. Spends more time playing with Union 2 and MLS Next Pro, which, okay, that league is what it is. It's not going to develop you as fast as the Union are hoping Brandan develops. An opportunity presented itself where, okay, he has a potential to get minutes in MLS. He wasn't going to get minutes here with our first team. And we have a good relationship with Austin. We think this is a move that works for both clubs and player. And we'll see. We'll see if Brandan Craig gets minutes in Austin for the remainder of the season. I do think it's funny that the Union got a third-round draft pick and they could get $125,000 in game in 2024 if he performs well this season in Austin. And in the press release, it didn't say anything about a buy option Austin will have. And Jim Curtin was asked about that too. He said, I just coach. I don't know the ins and outs of the deal. So as far as we know, there is no buy option that Austin has. But if they did, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But some people listening to this podcast might say, oh no, how could you say that about Brandan Craig? I don't know. I don't see it. Like, he looks good against kids his age. And people hype him up because of that. I don't know why. It's like, good. You can play against other 19, 20-year-olds. Can you do it against seasoned veterans? It's yet to be seen, but Austin say, hey, why not? We're desperate for center backs, and your strong suit is playing out of the back. We like playing with the ball, and if you impress in training, then you definitely get your opportunities here in Austin. But if not, then all we did was waste a 2024 super draft pick. So there is that move that the Union made, and hopefully that's not the last. And I played that clip at the beginning of Jim Curtin talking about, we're looking at players to improve our center backs. And one player I think Union fans should keep an eye out on is Henri Chase. And I don't expect any of you guys to know who that player is, and that's okay. He's a 19-year-old center back that currently plays for Stuttgart's second team, which plays in the fourth division in Germany. Like I said, he's 19 years old, has a contract with their second team until 2024, played in 12 games last season for Stuttgart's second team. He played with Japan's U20s at the past U20 World Cup in Argentina. And the reason I bring him up is because his father's an American. They moved to Texas at the age of 3. He stayed there for 9 years, and then they moved back overseas. And I believe because of that, he wouldn't take up an international roster spot. And we all know that Ernst Tenner loves the smaller division signings. Plays in Germany. We know Ernst Tenner has a ton of connections in Germany. He could potentially play for the U.S., which, like I said, I don't believe, even though he was born in Japan, I don't believe that he would take up an international roster spot. And so I think that would be intriguing for the Union. And I get it. Some people would say, well, he's 19 and Brandan Craig was 19. So why would you bring in another 19-year-old? And why would he want to come over here to MLS and sit on the bench? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that, where Jakob, Glesnes, Jack Elliott, they're not getting any younger. Damian Lowe, will the Union re-sign him? Will they be okay with Brandan Craig replacing Damian Lowe if they don't re-sign him? I don't know. It's a question you got to ask, right? Damian Lowe does have an option for the 2024 season, so the Union are probably going to take up that option. I don't see why they wouldn't. I'm sure Damian Lowe is fine in his role, being that third center back, playing occasionally when the Union go to 3 in the back. But here's a player that I think, because he's played in Germany, and Ernst Tenner has great connections there, a player that, who knows, he would love to stay in Germany. I'm sure if he had talks of him potentially getting brought up to Stuttgart's first team, but there has been no talks about that. And so maybe the next move for him is to go to MLS. And what better team to do that than with the Philadelphia Union, to learn under Jakob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, Damian Lowe for a year. And if the Union, do decide to bring back Brandan Craig, if Austin doesn't have a buy option, okay, well, you have 5 center backs, and maybe you can work out a deal. Maybe Brandan Craig impresses so much in Austin that you get a deal done with Austin for Brandan Craig, and now you're going to need to bring in a center back, and maybe it's going to be this guy. I think he's a player that Union fans should definitely be aware of, and if something happens, then I wouldn't be shocked if this is the guy that the Union are looking at. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a player when I was looking at, okay, well, what kind of signings does Ernst Tenner like? He likes lower division signings. If they can get players that have dual nationality, American citizenships, all right, that doesn't take an international roster spot, then they look at those kind of deals like they did with Leon Flock. So that's all I want to talk about in the news regard. Let's go ahead and talk about the LA Galaxy versus Philadelphia Union game, which we all know the Galaxy won that 3-1. And people, we talk about all the negatives all the time from the Union. And I do want to talk about that, but that's not where I want to start this segment off at. I want to start it off by giving credit to the Galaxy for how well they played on the night. This is a team that we were all writing off a month or so ago when they started the season losing 4 of the first 7 games. Then they go back and win a game here and there. Then they lose 2 more straight. And now they get a random win. And then they go on a 3-game losing streak. Chris Klein gets fired. And the fans are protesting. And it looked like the Galaxy were going to have another wasteful season under Chris Klein. And now you look. They're undefeated in their last 7 games, including this win over the Union. Coming into this game, they had that big win against LAFC at the Rose Bowl. Over 82,000 fans packed to see those two teams play. They were coming off of that high. And so the Union were not catching the Galaxy on a low. That win against LAFC was the highest point of the season so far for the Galaxy. And now they got momentum going. And they've had injuries this season. They've got players away in the Gold Cup. And the Union, we all know, have players injured, players away as well. But they haven't been in the greatest form, like the Galaxy have been. And boy, did the Galaxy bring it to the Union last night. And this just goes to show that this league is totally unpredictable. Because what we saw last night from the Galaxy, this was a team that was not fazed by the Union's press at all. A team that was solid defensively, forcing the Union to take poor shots, which we'll dive into that here in a bit. This is a team, just like Atlanta, who were first to every ball. They move the ball quickly. And it starts with the main man, Ricky Puig. The technical ability on the ball this kid has, with his touches, with his passing ability, you can see the Barcelona DNA imprinted all over him. And I do think we'll start to see MLS attracting more and more players like this. Like the Thiago Almadas of the league. Like the Ricky Puigs of the league. Which is exactly what the league needs, by the way. We need the league to continue to get younger, even though Inter Miami are trying to do the complete opposite. They're trying to go back to MLS of 10 years ago. Getting all these retired players. I mean, we all saw. We're talking about LA Galaxy, right? What better team to use as an example than the LA Galaxy? I mean, you look at players like Ashley Cole, Steven Gerrard. They did not last in MLS. They thought, oh, we're going to come here to MLS and collect an easy paycheck. And they quickly found out. Is that going to happen in Miami to Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba when that becomes official? To Messi. And you see the rumors of, oh, will Sergio Ramos come? Will Eden Hazard come? Will Luis Suarez come? You know, Miami keep getting linked with all these older players. And we all know that does not work. It does not last. I mean, look at New York City when they first came. Frank Lampard, Andres Pirlo. It did not work. All right, David Villa, older player in his prime. He still had a little something left. But majority of the time, these older players just don't last at MLS. The travel, the different climates all over the United States, it wears your body out. And I applaud majority of the league for doing the right thing and signing younger players, signing players that nobody's ever heard of, going to these smaller countries and getting diamonds in the rough, but not into Miami. No. We're going to bring all of Messi and his friends here in Miami and try to win the league. And maybe it works because you have Messi, but history will show you it's not how you win. That is not how you win in this league. And so I do think we will see younger players coming to the league because they want to play against Messi. They want to play with Messi. I think the league's just going to continue to get better. Players are going to say, hey, look, why not go to MLS for a couple seasons where I know I can get guaranteed playing time, where if I move to Europe, maybe I'm going to be on the bench. Maybe I'm going to be loaned out a couple times. Well, why not go to a guaranteed thing in America and, one, enjoy living in America, and two, enjoy playing consistently? And so I do think we're going to see more and more younger players, like I said, for now the sixth time, come to MLS. But man, well played to the Galaxy. A team that does have dangerous players, even with all the injuries they have. Did they let the fouls early on in this game by the Union affect their game? No. Because the Galaxy continued to play their game. How many times did Ricky Puig get fouled early on in this game by Jose Martinez, where, by the way, getting a yellow card on his first foul, that's a joke. But I do think because Ricky Puig had been fouled so many times leading up to the Jose Martinez foul, that's probably what did Jose in. Even though that was his first foul all game long, we eventually see Bedoya get a foul on Ricky as well. And I think it's pretty obvious what the Union's game plan was. Make him uncomfortable. Foul him. And that just made him get stronger, I felt like. He loved the contact. And when the Union brought the press, he passed right through it. Just like this whole Galaxy team did. And I was having this conversation earlier on Sunday with one of our listeners, Alex. And he said, teams know how to play against the diamond. Which is 100% true. It's 100% true. And that's why I want to see more of this 3-5-2 in the back. And I know the Union don't have the personnel to do that right now. Please, 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 no more Nate Harriel as a left center back. I love Nate, but he's not a left center back. He's not a left back. Keep Nate on the right side of the field, please. Matt Real looked terrible last night as a left back. It was the right decision by Jim to start Matt, but didn't take advantage of his opportunity. Now, I guess to his credit, which players on the night did? Nobody, you can say. Nobody impressed, but we have to give 3 stars, right? Even though it's like pulling teeth. Extremely difficult. It hurts. But we got to do it. We got to find 3 stars that seemed like they had good games. But I do agree, Alex, that the league has figured out the diamond. And it's not the same diamond that it was in 2019, where you have all 11 players pressing. They're just going to continue to press you and tire you out. And the Union do still press, but it's a calculated press now. It starts up top with your 2 forwards, in Julian Kranza and Mikau Ua. And if they don't get it right, then the whole thing falls apart. Because now you got players coming out of position. You got guys not knowing when they need to press. You get guys getting called out of position. And that's when it becomes a recipe for a disaster. And I don't think anybody is surprised that teams are able to get results against the Diamond after you've been playing it for 4 seasons, 5 seasons. The tape's out. Teams know how to play against it. And that's where it comes down to good coaching. Okay, can you throw in a little wrinkle here and there? What can you change up? Are you going to throw out that whole formation completely? No. Jim Curtin said as much as that this is our base. But you've got to throw wrinkles into that formation where it's not predictable. And what does that look like? Okay, you change up the pressing cues a little bit. You find ways to get Daniel Gazdag and Julian Kranz on the ball a little bit more. But we did not see that last night against the LA Galaxy. And again, I want to give full credit to the Galaxy. They dominated from start to finish. And we don't have to talk about it, guys. We don't have to talk about it anymore because I'll be honest, I'm getting tired of bringing up the Union's goals that they've given up in the first 15 minutes, conceding first in games. It's getting tiring because it's happened so often this season. And I know I have it somewhere here in my notes where I have the stat, and I'll probably bring it up later, but I don't want to spend 5-10 minutes talking about that anymore. You guys know it's an issue. I know it's an issue. Jim Curtin knows it's an issue. And I told you guys last episode, it seems like to me that teams are specifically targeting the Union center backs, trying to get their best players in 1v1 situations against them. We did manage to ask Jim Curtin that on Thursday in his press conference. And Jim Curtin completely didn't admit to that being an issue. Completely changed the question around and didn't answer it. And didn't want to throw anybody under the bus, which I wasn't trying to get Jim to do that. And maybe he took it that way. But it's an observation that I saw. And Jim could have came out and said, yeah, you're wrong with your observation. But he didn't. Instead, he turned it into praising his center backs, saying that they got the best center backs in the league. We know, Jim. We know that's how you feel. But in my opinion, I've seen it so many times this season, and maybe you guys are going to start paying attention to it. It's not even just when the Union gets scored on. It's chances that they're giving up. And maybe the goalkeeper comes up with a save, and now, okay, the center backs get let off the hook. Or maybe it's a shot that goes wide. It's the plays that are building up. Watch the positioning of the center backs. It's not been great. And we saw that again last night against the Galaxy. In the first half, around the 21st-ish minute, Glesnes gets caught way too high up, misses a tackle. And now the Galaxy are in behind with a chance. It doesn't always happen when the Union concede a goal. And that's, I think, what Jim Curtin thought was being asked. But that's not the case at all. And yeah, Jim didn't answer the question. And so there's no point in me playing the clip for you guys when that question wasn't answered. If you guys really want to hear the press conference, I see people occasionally ask on social media. You guys can always go to philadelphiaunion.com/video or look for the video tab on the website. The Union constantly posts the press conferences from midweek and after games on the website. Sucks, I know that they're not live, but they do get posted after a couple of hours, so you guys do have opportunities to listen to the whole press conferences if that's what you want. But just going back to this game. Yes, there's a sigh. There's a sigh for the people that complain about it. I know everybody wants to dunk on Joe Bendik, and trust me, we will get there. But I think a bigger issue is the lack of shots on target from the Union the last 2 games. Only 3 shots. That's not good enough. 13 shots blocked in their last 2 games, which tells me the Union are just taking a lot of wasteful shots. They're rushing shots. They're doing too much with the ball, and I'll give Glesnes his credit for shooting from distance, and yes, that shot got blocked, and the ball falls to Ua, who has a tap-in to tie the game 1-1. And even though it was a block shot, it's a good shot because the Galaxy gave him all that distance to shoot from, and when the defense is sitting extremely deep, you've got to take those opportunities that they give you. And why Mavinga turns his body on that shot, that's piss poor defending. As a center back, why? You are facing the ball. Why would you turn your back? It's beyond me. Now the ball deflects off of you. You have no idea where the ball went as a center back. Why? And I'm getting mad for an LA Galaxy player. But I think I'm mad because it's poor defending. And that's the type of defending where your Euro snobs that, oh, I'm going to turn in for just one MLS game a season. And now if they turned in for this game and they see that defending from Mavinga, now they're going to say, oh, this is typical MLS defending. This is how defending always is in the league. It's poor defending. You're facing the ball. So what if the ball hits you? Just suck it up. And he turns his back. And now the ball deflects and it falls to Mikel Ura. And credit to Mikel for being in the right position and has an easy goal. Won't get easier than that. But why? Why are you turning your back? And Jim Curtin was asked after the game, 3 shots your last 2 games. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's hard to create on the road for sure, but when you do, and you have actually in this game, their second string goalkeeper, we talked about really testing him. We had little windows to shoot, and we were trying to get a little too cute with, flicks or dummies or different things, and trying to make the perfect play in and around the box rather than just putting something on target and making it hard on a goalkeeper that hasn't played a lot this year. So again, you're right. Not enough chance creation, not enough opportunities. You're not going to get many chances on the road. It's going to be difficult again now in Nashville. But this 3-game block without the players that we had, I think we knew was going to be not easy. So again, we'll have to regroup. Maybe we get some pieces back, maybe not, and then we'll kind of go from there. But we still know we have a strong group when everybody is here. But I think what this shows, Matt, is, what I've said many times to you guys, our margins are razor thin. And if everybody isn't at least good, we don't have a chance to win. And we don't have a Ricky Puig or a Douglas Costa who can dribble by 5 guys and score a goal. So that's our reality. We embrace that and we like that. But it's a great reminder that we all have to be almost perfect on the day. Coaching staff, players, 1 through 11, guys that come in off the bench have to be really sharp for us to have a chance to get points. We've been really good at that through the years, but tonight's a reminder that if we don't bring it, you get beat.
And beat the Union got. Prior to their last 2 road games, the Union averaged 4.2 shots on target on the road. And now that number is down to 3.7 because of the Atlanta and now the LA Galaxy game. And in those 2 games, they don't even hit either of those numbers. That's why the 4.2 has went down to 3.7 now. 1 shot on target in Atlanta. 2 shots on target out in LA. And trust me, folks, we are going to talk about Joe Bendik here in a bit and discuss some of his numbers and hear from Jim Curtin. But it's pretty clear to me that the offense isn't getting it done right now on the road here in the last 2 games. And you've got a tough task in Nashville where they do not lose at home. That is a tough environment to go and play. And I know last season, the Union get the first goal in that game in their stadium opener, Mikel Ura. And then a BS penalty at the game sees Nashville get a point. But also remember, Andre Blake kept the Union in that game, save after save. Huge saves in that game against Nashville. And I just finished watching the Guatemala-Jamaica game. Jamaica won 1-0. So now no Andre Blake on Wednesday. Do you continue to go with Joe Bendik? Do you go with Holden Trent? We'll talk about that here again in a bit. But the offense, that's what we're talking about. They are not getting it done. And we know when the front 3 aren't clicking, this is more or the same that we're going to see going forward. We've seen it in the past. When those 3 aren't on, when they're taking out of the game, this is what you get. And Jim said, we don't have a Ricky Puig or a Douglas Costa. And the Union embraced that. But I do think that it's time that the Union start looking at a game changer off the bench. And if we want to be real here for a couple minutes, And we're being so real. And we give this guy a lot of credit. Ernst Tanner hasn't got it right the last couple of transfer windows, if we're being honest. I mean, think about it. Joaquin Torres, bust. Andres Pereira, can't even get into the starting 11. Bust. Damian Lowe. All right, they've hit on that. Richard Odada, bust. Can't break into the 11. Obasa Armia, bust. Got cut from the team because he was injured. So one hit in the last 5 signings or trades. That is not good enough. And if we want to look at the last 2 summer windows, you had Udada, Abasa, and Davo. And none of them, when they got brought in the summertime, got playing time. Because Jim Curtin always says, oh, the players need to learn the system before they can play. And when the Union signed Richard and Abasa, they said, yeah, these signings are for next season, not this season. And here we are in 2023. And Richard has yet to play with the first team. Plays here and there with the second team. But no opportunities at all with the first team. Maybe League's Cup is an opportunity for him. Maybe we get to see him again. I mean, a lot of people on social media hyped out Richard Odada after his friendly last year against Pachuca, I want to say it was. And maybe this is an opportunity again for him to play with the first team in League's Cup. I would. I mean, what do you have to lose? I'd play him. But yeah, the last 2 windows have not been good by Ernst Tanner. And I've been saying that this team needs another midfielder, a playmaker, a backup for Daniel Gazdag, a player that isn't afraid to take on people 1v1. We haven't had that player since Elsinio and Jamiro Montero. And, you know, I criticize Jamiro Montero at times, but nobody can deny his 1v1 ability. And we don't have anybody on that roster like that. I mean, you go out and get Joaquin Torres in hopes that he can be like Elsinio, like Jamiro Montero, but he's not. He's not good at all. He's been a terrible signing. And he has an option for the 2024 and then an option for 2025. The club option. So does the Union just say, you know what, we've seen enough. You take up an international roster spot and we're going to go ahead and cut our ties with you. It's possible. It's possible that's what the Union do at the end of the season. And I don't know if that happens, because if that happens, then Ernst Tanner's admitting that he got it wrong. And I don't think Ernst is the type that wants to say that. But maybe they do that. Maybe they say, yep, we tried. There's just no way that you can fit in when we play the 4-4-2 diamond. And then on to the next. So, I mean, hopefully we see the Union go out this summer and sign a 1v1 midfielder. And you've got to go out and get another striker. We all know that. We've all been saying that. We miss a player like Sergio Santos that has pace like Sergio, that you can bring off the bench, go at tired legs, stretch the field, open up space. We miss that type of player. And Corey Burke, yeah, he brought a little bit of that too last season. Wasn't as fast as Sergio Santos, but definitely faster than Chris Donovan. Faster than Julian Carranza. And so I do hope that the Union go out and make 2 signings. They need to make 2 signings. They have to. And I know some of you guys out there are saying, oh, get a second goalkeeper as well. The damage has already been done. 6 games we've seen Joe Bendik play in that's asking for trouble when Joe Bendik has to play in 6 or more games. I said it last episode, to start here and there. Okay, fine. You'll be fine with Joe Bendik coming in then. But 6+ starts? Yeah, you're you're asking for a lot of issues there. So I don't think all goalkeepers should be high on the Union's priority list because the damage has already been done. You can't go back and put that new goalkeeper in the prior games that have already been played. The damage has been done, folks. Andre Blake's going to be back here sooner rather than later. Not going to happen in Nashville. Maybe it happens for the game against New York City. But I don't know. It's possible that Jamaica go all the way to the final. They're a terrific team. They've showed it throughout the Gold Cup so far. Andre Blake, 7 saves, I think, against Guatemala. Huge saves for Jamaica. And that's what the Union are missing right now. So I wouldn't put a goalkeeper on my priority list. What about a trade for Kasper Schmeichel? Now, I saw people talking about that on Twitter this week because Kasper recently put a post on Instagram saying, and this is a quote from, I forget who he quoted, but it said, "If you're not being valued, you're just in the wrong place. Do not be angry. Do not be bitter, but do go to another place. The right place with the right people will always treat you the way you deserve to be. Know your worth and never settle where you're not appreciated. Never stay where people don't value you." I don't know, that's a pretty telling quote right there, right? We know Kasper signed a long-term deal in Chicago, I believe, through the 2025 season. His contract when he was with the Union was through 2023. And then part of the reason he left the Union to go to Chicago is because he wanted those guaranteed years. Union weren't offering that, Chicago were. So he wanted stability. And that's why he said, "Hey, look, trade me to Chicago." The Union said, "All right, we'll get about $1 million in GAM for you. We'll pack your bags. We'll drive you to the airport. Thanks for all you did for the club, Kasper, but best of luck to you." Currently has 3 goals this season for the Fire in 824 minutes. 11 of his 17 appearances for the club in the league have been starts. And I've watched a couple of Chicago games this year, and he's missed some really easy chances for the Fire. The ones that Union fans used to get annoyed at all the time. And I see people say, "Well, I take him over Chris Donovan." True. But if you did somehow bring back Kasper Schmeichel, that can't be your only move. And does he accept his role coming off the bench? I don't know. And again, the Union weren't comfortable giving him a multi-year deal. That's why they traded him. Would they be comfortable taking a player that's making a significant amount of money that is better than Corey Burke, I'd say? But he's not the striker you need. And so you got a player that's making, I think, close to $1 million, I want to say, a season. He's not a DP because they brought that down with Tam. But that is a lot of money to be paying to a player that's not going to be starting, that's just going to be coming off the bench. And I don't know if the Union did that. I mean, wasn't that part of the reason why they traded Sergio Santos? Because he's making a lot of money just as a bench option, and they wanted to free up some money, so they struck a deal with Cincinnati. I'd feel like they'd rather have Sergio Santos on this roster than Kasper. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about bringing Kasper back if that was an option on the table. I mean, if you had to ask me if I had like 10 seconds to answer that, I'd say no. Because they need a speedster. That's what they need. They don't have that guy. And you can bring a guy in that, like I said, goes at tired legs, stretches the field. That's what you need. Then you need that midfielder that can take players on 1v1. And I think if the Union did that, I think a lot of you guys would be a lot more comfortable and confident in this roster. We were all confident at the beginning of the season saying, wow, the Union finally did it. They made trades in MLS. And then those moves weren't great. So we'll see. We'll see what the Union do this summer. I really hope. I really hope they make some moves, and those moves that they do make, hopefully they play. But let's go ahead and talk about Joe Bendik. And man, we're 52 minutes into this podcast, and I'm only halfway done my notes. So we're going to have to fly through this because I do not want to make this episode an hour and 10 minutes long, even though some of you guys enjoy that. But Joe Bendik, there is no defending Joe this week like last. He should have saved the first 2 goals of this game. 13 goals allowed in his 7 appearances this season. That is not good enough, even for a backup goalkeeper. 13 goals allowed when his PSXG is 8.1. So for people that don't know what that is, Joe Bendik, the shots that he faced on target, 8 of them were supposed to be goals, and he's allowed 13 goals. And so he's not making the saves that he's supposed to be making. And I think, okay, if Joe Bendik did only concede 8 goals in 7 appearances this season, I think we would all be fine with that. But that's not the case. And for goalkeepers that have made 6 or more starts this season, Joe has the worst save percentage, which is 55.6%. And on paper, Joe is having the second worst season in his career. And you got to go all the way back to his first professional season in his career, which started in Norway. He had a save percentage of 52% that year. And now he's having the second worst season ever. His worst season ever in MLS. And I said it. You put Joe in here and there, all right, you'll be fine. But you rely on him for a good amount of games. 6 games is definitely a good amount of games. You were asking for trouble. But we're looking at 6 games. 6 games. And maybe he starts on Wednesday against Nashville. Maybe you start holding Trent. Because in the 6 games so far this season, Joe's 1-4-1. And when he started 6 games in 2019 for Columbus before they said, you know what, we've had enough. We're trading you. And they traded him to the Union. He was 0-5-1 in Columbus. I don't know how Joe Bendik has been around for as long as he has. He's a goalkeeper that doesn't instill a lot of confidence in the back line. It's why you see players overcommitting. But man, it's not been good enough. And Jim Curtin didn't throw Joe under the bus. But this is the closest you're going to hear Jim ever criticize one of his players.
Yeah, look, I think it's a situation where if you talk with Joe, he probably would say he could do better on the goals. But again, there's 10 plays from each player tonight that I could go through and say they could do better as well. So we're not going to single out individuals or place blame on any one person. But yeah, I think Joe does know he could do better on those goals.
Yeah. He has to do better. Especially if he gets another start this Wednesday in Nashville. Be a tough place to start holding Trent, but I don't know. I've seen enough of Joe Bendik, and I know all of you guys have as well, but I don't know. You don't know what you have in holding Trent until you throw him out there, and I'm not against seeing what he has. I mean, can't be any worse than what we've seen by Joe Bendik. 2 of those goals that the Galaxy scored last night should have been saves. Why Joe Bendik doesn't come and claim that ball on the corner, which was the second goal? You're a goalkeeper. Go up for that ball. If you miss it, odds are the referee is going to give you the foul. Doesn't make an attempt. It's all awkward there with the goal that he gave up. The first goal gets a hand to it and the ball goes under him. What are you doing? What are you doing? And man, I'm getting flashbacks of Joe Bendik's Toronto and Orlando days when he played against the Union. Remember the Bendik face? Those are the flashbacks that I am getting right now, watching Joe Bendik in goal for the Union. It's not been good. It's not been good. And man, Guatemala did Union fans no favors Sunday afternoon. And so we'll see on Wednesday who plays in goal. I don't know. It's a lot of pressure, whoever goes in goal. Holden Trent for his first start. It's asking a lot. Joe Bendik has zero confidence. What makes you think he'll get it done in Nashville? I don't know. But the last point I want to bring up, and by the way, there is no positives in this game against the Galaxy. There is zero positives. So for people that thought, oh, well, you're going to talk about positives and you haven't got there yet. There are no positives. The road form, the last 4 games. The Union are 0-3-1, outscored 9-4 in those games. All 4 of those games have seen the Union concede first. And by the way, I said I'd bring it up someplace in my notes. 12 out of 21 games so far this season, the Union have conceded first. And somehow they have the most points in the league with 11 when they concede first. Only Dallas has more wins when they concede first. But after going 3-0-1 in your previous 4 road games before this current stretch, they've now resulted back to a team that struggles on the road, tied for the 7th most points on the road in MLS with 11, 3-6-2. Now, I guess the good thing is there's only 6 more road games left this season. Nashville, who are 8-1-2 at home. DC United, who are 4-3-4 at home. Toronto, 3-3-6 at home. Charlotte, 3-3-5 at home. Columbus, 8-1-3 at home. And New England, 7-0-3 at home. Union probably need to win their remaining 7 home games if they want to get a guarantee of a top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference. You want a shot at finishing higher, you need to get results on the road. And playing from behind is not going to do that for you. You are not going to get results on the road if you are constantly playing from behind. I'm getting tired of talking about it, right? I'm sure Jim Curtin's tired of bringing it up to his players that, look, this is an issue. It has not got corrected. And I don't know, maybe something clicks once we come out of League's Cup. Maybe it does. But so far in the second half of the season, much like the first, the Union keep conceding on the road. Keep conceding in the first 15 minutes. And this isn't the same team from 2022. Because at this point in the season, this is when we started to see the Union get hot, blow teams out. And do you guys feel like that's going to happen? How confident are you that the Union can win all 7 remaining home games? Get some points on the road in the remaining 6. How confident are you guys? Because me personally, I'm not that confident. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Got to start by making moves. That's what the Union got to do. Maybe that will instill some confidence back into the fans. Let's go ahead quickly. And like I said, there's like pulling teeth. It's painful. It hurts. 3 stars, but we had to do it. Number 3, Daniel Gazdag. 2 chances created, 6 passes into the final third, 5 ball recoveries, 5 out of 7 ground duels won, 3 fouls drawn. Daniel does his job as a number 10. creates chances. Just nobody's finishing off those plays. Can't do much more than that. Number 2 on the night, Ali Bedoya. 1 chance created, 4 passes into the final third. 2 out of 2 tackles, 1, 2 interceptions, 7 ball recoveries. The only player on the night that seemed like they actually cared, that they actually tried to get something in this game. When Ali Bedoya, who's your hardest working player on the night, is outworking every single player there on the field. Nah, what I was going to say was going to sound like I was going to make a shot at Ali. Nah, I think it talks about his professionalism. But Ali can't be the only player at 36 years old being your hardest working player. It's got to be other players too. And that was not the case. And then number 1, the only player that gets the goal in the night, Mikel Ua, 1 goal, 1 out of 2 shots on target, 1 chance created. But again, nobody really impressed, but because we always do this, and it's always Union players. And I say it all the time, when the Union have a bad game, maybe we should just include other players as well. But for the time being, it's only Union players. Give it time. If the Union continue to have bad results, then we'll start talking about the star players overall, not just Union players. But we'll go and end the episode on Blunder of the Week. And again, don't want to go longer than an hour 10. We're at an hour and 4 minutes so far. And Blunder of the Week has to go to Apple for their feed, constantly cutting in and out last night during the game. I mean, we missed the 3rd goal. I mean, how do you miss a goal? We had the feed earlier in the first half, cutting in and out. Half of the picture was showing, half of it was gray. We had the commentators sounding like the chipmunks, people were saying. It was a bad product. In the LAFC game, their feed was also cutting out. We constantly were showing replays in this game and not following along with the action. It's not good directing by the producers. We praise the quality of the games, the picture of the games, but man, there's been a lot of times this season where it's been poor producing. They're not following the action. They're showing replays, and now we missed a shot. We missed a goal. The feed cuts in and out. Not all the time, but more than it should. And you best believe people are going to be pissed off once they start watching MLS worldwide because of Messi. So MLS and Apple, they've got to have their stuff together once Messi starts playing. Because we're more than halfway done the season. And last night, I said it, is this peak MLS after dark with all the technical issues we had. It's inexcusable. So there's Blunder of the Week. I think we can all agree that we were all pissed off, but I don't know, maybe we were spared not seeing the 3rd LA Galaxy goal. But I don't know, when I'm somebody that analyzes the game, does goal breakdowns, I want to see the goals, even if they're not scored by the Union. Because how else can I see how the build-up led to the goal? I can't when you have poor technical issues like that. But as always, if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod. No preview episode this week for Nashville. That's why I hate these Wednesday games. And then that means that we won't have a preview episode for the New York City game this weekend. So you will get multiple podcasts this week because we'll review the Nashville game, but no preview episode. I do miss doing this preview episode, so maybe we get one coming back from the League's Cup break, which I believe we played Dallas. I believe that's the first game back from Leagues Cup. So we do have plenty of time to find a guest for that game. So we're definitely make sure we have a guest for that. But I've been telling you guys, once League Cup comes, really don't want to cover that. Don't want to talk about it here on the podcast. So if any of you listeners want to come on the podcast and talk about the season, if you guys want to talk about Leagues Cup, we can talk about Leagues Cup. I'm still going to watch the game, but I don't really want to talk about it on the podcast if I don't have to. If you guys want to, then I'll do it for sure. But I want to make that time available to you guys to come on the podcast, and especially for the new people that have never been on the podcast. You want to come on the podcast, talk about your Union jersey. You want to talk about becoming a fan of the Union, talk about the season, whatever you want to talk about that is around the Union. We'll talk about it. So that's pretty much it here for the episode. We're almost at an hour 10, which I did not want to go over. So until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.